All right, Bills Mafia, we've got two genuinely massive storylines to break down today, and both of them circle back to the exact same position that this fan base has been obsessing over for months: wide receiver. One of these stories involves a familiar face who isn't hiding the fact that he'd happily put the Bills' uniform back on. The other centers on a veteran with an even bigger resume, someone who could become one of the defining storylines of training camp if this front office decides to make one more move before the season kicks off. And depending on how both of these situations play out over the next few weeks, they could tell us exactly how confident Brandon Beane really is in this current roster's ability to finally break through and get over that playoff hump. Let's dig into both. First up, Brandon Cooks is officially back in the conversation, and honestly, the more you think about it, the more this reunion actually makes a lot of sense. According to recent reports, Cooks has made it clear that if Buffalo reached back out about another opportunity, he would absolutely be interested in returning. To be clear, there's no active negotiation happening right now, and nothing here is imminent. But the simple fact that genuine interest exists on his end makes this a storyline absolutely worth tracking as training camp gets underway. And that interest actually says a lot on its own. Veteran players who move on from an organization don't always look back fondly, but Cooks clearly enjoyed his short stint in Buffalo, and that familiarity matters. He already understands the culture this front office and coaching staff have built. He already developed real chemistry with Josh Allen. Even though he only joined the roster fairly late during last season, he didn't need much time at all to earn the trust of both the coaching staff and his quarterback. Whenever his number got called, he looked like someone who genuinely understood the offense, ran disciplined, precise routes, and gave Allen another dependable target during one of the most critical stretches of the entire season. Unfortunately, the moment most fans still associate with him isn't a happy one. During the divisional round playoff matchup against Denver, Cooks appeared to come down with what looked like one of the biggest, most important catches of the entire season. For one brief electric moment, it felt like Buffalo had just made the play that could completely swing the game in their favor. Then came the replay review. Officials overturned the call, ruling it an interception instead, and it instantly became one of the most controversial, gut-wrenching moments of that entire playoff run, the kind of call this fan base still argues about today. Instead of extending a drive that could have kept the Super Bowl dream alive, that possession ended, and eventually, so did the season, in a heartbreaking overtime defeat. Those are exactly the kinds of moments that stick with a fan base for years. But heading into this season, Buffalo finds itself in a genuinely different roster situation. There's real, exciting young talent in this receiver room, but there's also legitimate uncertainty behind the top options. This front office clearly believes in its younger players, but experience still matters, especially for a franchise that isn't rebuilding or simply trying to sneak into the playoffs. This is a team chasing an actual championship. That's exactly why bringing someone like Cooks back into the fold makes real football sense. Even at this stage of his career, he still brings legitimate speed, polished route running, and years of genuine playoff experience. This is a receiver with multiple thousand-yard seasons on his URSM, someone who's consistently shown he can contribute in meaningful, high-pressure moments. He wouldn't need to be the number one option anymore. He wouldn't even need to be the number two. Sometimes what a championship-caliber roster needs most is simply a veteran who fully understands his role and is ready the moment his number gets called. And let's be honest, we've all watched plenty of seasons get completely reshaped by unexpected injuries. Having another genuinely experienced receiver waiting in reserve isn't a luxury item. It can become an overnight necessity. The financial piece makes real sense too. Since Cooks remains a free agent right now, Buffalo has complete flexibility here if the front office ultimately decides this roster could benefit from one more proven pass catcher. There's no complicated trade package required, no significant long-term financial commitment necessary. This could be a relatively low cost. low-risk move with genuinely significant upside if he's ever called upon to contribute during another postseason run. Right now, the ball is squarely in Buffalo's court. Cooks has already opened the door. The only remaining question is whether Brandon Beane believes this offense genuinely needs another proven veteran before Week 1 arrives. Now here's where the second story gets even more interesting. Because Cooks isn't the only established veteran receiver whose name is currently being connected to Buffalo. In fact, another player with an even bigger overall URSM is generating plenty of buzz across the league right now, and it's a name that could represent one more significant upgrade to this receiver room before the season begins. Even after acquiring DJ Moore earlier this offseason and heading into camp with a receiver trio that includes Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Josh Palmer expected to play prominent roles, plenty of league observers are still questioning whether Buffalo has enough proven, playoff-tested depth behind those top options for a genuine championship push. That's exactly where DeAndre Hopkins enters the conversation. According to league speculation, Buffalo is expected to keep monitoring the veteran free agent market closely throughout training camp, and Hopkins has emerged as one of the more intriguing names if this front office decides another experienced target is necessary. To be clear, there's been no indication that any deal is close, and nothing currently suggests real negotiations are underway. But from a purely football standpoint, it's easy to understand exactly why his name keeps resurfacing. Hopkins may no longer be in the absolute prime of his career, but he remains one of the most accomplished receivers of his entire generation. A five-time first-team All-Pro, he's built a legitimate reputation as one of the best route runners in modern football. Someone who consistently knows how to create separation, win contested catches, and deliver in critical moments. The biggest difference now is that Buffalo wouldn't need him to carry an entire offense. Instead of asking him to be a true number one option, this coaching staff could deploy him in a genuinely complementary role alongside Moore and Shakir, giving Josh Allen another dependable veteran target while simultaneously taking real developmental pressure off younger players like Coleman. And that's really the heart of this entire conversation. This organization still clearly believes in Coleman's long-term upside, but consistency remains the biggest open question as he enters his third professional season. The flashes of the talent that made this front office draft him in the first place have absolutely shown up. Now it's simply a matter of turning those flashes into weekly, dependable production. Palmer is also fighting for a genuinely significant role, and several younger receivers are competing hard for remaining roster spots and playing time, making this one of the single most competitive position groups on the entire roster heading into camp. Training camp itself is going to answer a lot of these lingering questions. If Coleman takes a real, legitimate leap forward, if Palmer settles comfortably into his role within this offense, and if the younger depth pieces prove they're genuinely ready for expanded roles, Buffalo may simply choose to stand pat with its current group. But if those specific questions remain unanswered as the season approaches, adding a proven veteran becomes a whole lot easier to justify. And that's really what makes this entire storyline so fascinating. Even if Hopkins never actually signs in Buffalo, the simple fact that his name keeps surfacing in these conversations says something meaningful about how the rest of the league currently views this franchise. People around the NFL clearly recognize that this team is firmly inside its championship window, and when you're that close to legitimately competing for a Super Bowl, every single roster decision starts to matter that much more. And here's what makes these two stories connect so naturally. If Hopkins ultimately doesn't become a realistic option, Cooks remains an extremely viable fallback plan. In some ways, a reunion with Cooks might even carry certain advantages over bringing in a completely unfamiliar veteran, since he already knows Josh Allen personally, already understands the offensive coordinator's system, and already has real experience inside this specific locker room. That built-in familiarity could make a reunion considerably smoother than integrating an entirely new veteran just weeks before the regular season begins. At the end of the day, all of this points back to one simple truth. Brandon Beane isn't going to make a move purely for the sake of generating headlines. Every decision here is going to come down directly to what actually happens once training camp gets underway. If the current receiving group proves it's genuinely ready, this front office may very well stand pat. But if there's a belief that one more proven veteran meaningfully increases this team's championship odds, the flexibility to act clearly exists. And honestly, that's exactly the mentality you want from a front office that's fully committed to chasing a title. As Bills fans, this fan base has waited a long time for this team to finally clear that last hurdle. Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level. This roster is genuinely one of the deepest in the entire league. The championship window is wide open right now. The remaining task simply comes down to making sure every single position group is strong enough to survive an entire NFL season and another deep playoff push. Whether the eventual answer ends up being Hopkins, Cooks, or simply trusting the young talent already on this roster, one thing is abundantly clear. This organization isn't settling for good enough. So Bills Mafia, we want to hear from you. If Buffalo does add one more veteran receiver before the season starts, who would you rather see in that role, Brandon Cooks or DeAndre Hopkins? Sound off in the comments, because we know this fan base has some genuinely strong opinions on this one. If you enjoyed today's update, make sure you smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and join the community so you don't miss a single update heading into training camp. Go Bills, we'll see you in the next one.